everyone. Welcome back to the How to Podcast series. I have yet another great co-host on the show to talk all things podcasting. We're going to be talking about working with your co-host, having a shared vision. We're going to be talking about audio versus video platforms, all kinds of stuff on the podcast. We're going to be talking about baseball umpiring. We're going to be talking about serving your country, which is amazing. And Andy's here with me today. Andy, welcome as a co-host to the show. Glad to have you here.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And in addition to all of that, we'll talk about long walks on the beach. And never mind. Sorry.
Oh, you got me in the heart there. I love it.
Right in the feels.
Right in the feels.
No, seriously. Thanks for having me on. The last time we talked, it was such a great conversation that I'm super happy to be here.
And for those listening at home, both Andy and I just woke up. So we're just getting going. So we're a little groggy. I have my coffee, which is already cold. I wish it would stay warm faster, or longer. But anyways, Andy, it's great to have you here. The idea for all this is we're going to co-host together, talk podcasting. So the best way to start, tell us about your podcast. Tell us a little bit about your journey. Let's promote. Let's tell everybody what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you. First, I'll start off by saying at least you have an excuse for going to sleep. I just fell asleep because anyway, my podcast is titled Nothing's Off the Table, and we are live every Friday evening at 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time. And we, as the title suggests, we talk about anything and everything. And I have a co-host, and we don't necessarily have to agree with what our guest is talking about, but we respect that. We give them a platform, and we have a healthy adult conversation. Healthy
is a key word there.
Healthy, yes, because let me break it down for you. I've had this podcast for about 5 years now, maybe a little bit longer, actually about 7 years now. And it's had its ups and downs. You know, we've had our growths and our setbacks. And I was co-hosting it with two other gentlemen for a while, for about 2 years or so. And our visions just didn't match, which is going to be a great segue for the vision. Our visions didn't match. I wanted my show to be more of what I described to you, and they were just wanting to get on and discuss whatever had pissed them off for the day, week, whatever the case may be. It was just a bunch of anger, a bunch of negativity, and not my vision. So we had to part ways. So we went on a hiatus for about 6 to 7 months, and I was searching for the right co-host, someone that shared my vision, my passion, found them, and now we've been doing the podcast once again for about 2-3 months now. About 2. Yeah. And format is so much different. It's so much better. But I don't want to jump ahead. What we talked about vision. So I think that's so important before you even get started doing a podcast. You have to know what you want to talk about, for one. And then you have to know what direction you want to go once you've discovered what subject you want to talk about. Now, the great thing about podcasting is that whatever you are going to do for a topic, someone out there is going to be interested. Guaranteed. So, regardless of how specific of a niche it is, I highly encourage you to go out and start it anyway, because you will gain a following. It might not be a big one. I mean, you know, I still have to pay my mom to listen to mine, but and she's our only follower. I kid. But yeah, you got to have that vision. And then more importantly, you got to follow that vision, because I failed to do that initially. And that's what kind of led me into the situation that I was in. But
I talk to a lot of podcasters who are looking to find a co-host, and the search to find a good co-host that you can gel with, you can kind of work together and kind of bounce off each other. That whole task of finding a co-host is really hard to do. Any words of wisdom from you as you went through the process of trying to find the next person to fill that seat.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to be friends with this person, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
As long as there's good chemistry between you, you kind of feed off of each other, and that's going to come with practice. No one expects a brand new podcast for people to get in there and be completely flawless. In fact, if that was the case, you may as well just go into journalism, because that's kind of goes against the spirit of what podcasts are all about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's there's a lot of groups out on Facebook and other platforms that you can put out a message saying that you're looking for a co-host, and surprisingly or not, well, this is how we found each other, basically through Facebook.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's do your work, do your research, do a little bit of background into your potential co-host, and make sure you could do interviews with folks and get on and see how the chemistry is with between the two of you. That's a great starting point, I think.
Yeah, and I like having two different opinions. If you have two people who have the same opinion on everything, it's kind of like one of you is not really necessary. What's your favorite food? Oh, mine's pizza. Oh, so is mine. Next topic. What's your favorite color? Mine's blue. Oh, so is mine. I'm listening to this podcast going, I have two of the same people. It sounds like you're talking to yourself. So get somebody with a different opinion so you can kind of go back and forth. There's some dialogue. Maybe even guys get a little heated at times because you're like, no, I'm really passionate about this team, but this is my team. And you go back and forth. I like that kind of back and forth.
Sure.
In OS as well. That's kind of nice to hear.
Definitely. My co-hosts and I agree on a lot, but we don't always agree on everything.
Yeah, good.
So it makes it fun, primarily because he and I served together. And so there's a lot of good-natured banter and ribbing going back and forth between us, and it's never personal. And that's another key hallmark. Don't ever take things personal.
Yeah.
Especially when you read the comments afterwards.
I want to take that exit ramp you just set us up with there. Serve together. First of all, thank you for serving your country and doing something that a lot of people don't do. That has opened doors for you now with those that you've served with and those that have served for your country. You have something very unique that you're a part of that I'd love to kind of talk about, and I want people to know about as we do this. I have so many people come through on podcasts that have served their country, and I would love for them to know about this as well. So talk a little bit about the coaching program or the umpire program that you have, and how that kind of came to be, and who you serve and how that works. I'd love to talk about that more, please.
So I thank you for giving me that opportunity. I belong to an organization called the Wounded Warrior Umpire Academy. And I just want to preface before I go any further that we're not part of Wounded Warrior Project. We're completely separate. But what we do is we take wounded veterans, service members, whether it's a physical or a mental unseen wound, and we bring them in for a 10-day course. We teach them how to umpire. But more importantly, we use baseball and umpiring as an excuse to get these veterans back together again. And what that does is it gives them a sense of purpose. It brings them back and gives them that camaraderie that they've probably been missing, with their brothers and sisters. And it gives them a way to easily assimilate back into the civilian community, providing a service to the community, which is, giving back to the community that basically supported us for all the years. And so it's an amazing program. What we do is it's a nonprofit organization. We take these veterans in. We usually have about 20 or so students per class. It's a once-a-year class. Excuse me. And we pay for the flights, the hotel, the food, and umpatire.com provides each student with about $1,500 worth of brand new umpire gear. So they're completely set. As soon as they get back, they can roll right into to umpiring. And believe it or not, what we teach in this 10-day course is a very condensed version of the professional umpire school. So we like to say it's like drinking through a fire hose. all the information that you get. It's a lot of information in a short period of time. But if you pay attention and you practice, and if you've had umpiring some experience in the past, if you do apply to this program, I highly suggest forget everything you know and then learn the way that they teach you, and you will be successful, guaranteed.
Nice. Is there a way for us as listeners to support that?
Absolutely. So if you go to woundedwarriorua.org, then you can there's a link on there that you can donate. There's other ways that you can donate. Cash is always good, simply because it's basically a mom and pop organization. The organizers, I guess the president, if you will, he and his wife are both full-time teachers. So everything that they do, it's in their spare time. And more importantly, it's probably about, I would say, a good 85 to 90% of all the monetary donations that come in go to the veterans. And that 10 to 15% is for operational costs. So these guys we are not making money. And it's about $40,000 to $50,000 a year to run this camp. So if you feel it in your heart and you want to do something for these veterans that are struggling, it's a great way to help them start the healing process. Yeah.
I know there's some vets that I've talked to who have come back and now they're in a really great spot. They're very successful. They're looking for ways to give back to their community as well. So maybe listening to the show, they're like, hey, I could step up. I could do something. So just knowing about it is the first step, right?
Absolutely. So yeah. I can't speak enough about it. In fact, the program saved my life. I'll just go ahead and break down a wall there. But and what's cool about the program is that once you graduate the course, usually that's just it, right? Go along, little doggy, do your thing. But no, we have a monthly alumni call. A couple times a year we have events. As a matter of fact, next month we're going out to Tucson, Arizona. There's a huge baseball tournament out there, and the organization, we get together. We're going to go out there and umpire for this thing, and all the money that we would make goes back to the organization. So
wow.
When we say it's all volunteer, it's all volunteer. We have, I think, six or eight board members, and none of us receive a penny.
Yeah.
Nor would we.
It's amazing. So, okay. So, yeah, give us a website one more time.
www.woundedwarriorua.org.
Beautiful. Make sure we'll have that in the show notes as well. If you're listening at the gym, you're on the bike, you're like, I don't have a pen, I can't write this down. It's in the show notes. You can come back anytime. All the information is there long into the future. So, again, thank you for being part of that. It's a great idea. And I don't know, that'd be an amazing idea up in Canada too. I'm just putting that out there. I've never heard of it. I've never heard it in Canada. So if you're listening, reach out and, get some information, and maybe we need this up here as well. So it's a great idea.
There's so many, organizations out there for veterans that, as a matter of fact, I'm going to take this moment to make a shameless plug on Nothing's Off the Table. Right. As you mentioned earlier, we do segments, and our second to last segment, we will never change. And that segment is a portion we call Veterans Helping Veterans. And what we do is we highlight a nonprofit veterans organization that's out there that's doing great things for veteran communities. And the goal of that and our hope is that it drives more traffic to these sources and we get more support for our veterans.
Nice.
And once again, that's Nothing's Off the Table every Friday night.
That's it. See, there you go. We plug. Talk about the fact that you have segments for your show. Is that something you set up early days of your podcast? Is it relatively new? And kind of quickly run through the segments you do in your podcast.
Sure. Yeah. So no, this is something that we just started. And it was a necessity for me because, I've got squirrel and shiny syndrome really bad. So, we would get off on tangents and we would never even talk about the topic that we were originally discussing. So,
Right.
I just started this and each segment's about 20 minutes, depending on whether we have a guest or not. We do have our third segment is a segment called Story of the Week. And that's where my co-host and we both pick a separate story from the news that's within that week periodicity and we share it. And sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's just makes you shake your head, but we try to keep it educational and entertaining. But I've found over the last probably 2 months that it's working so well that I've had a couple other podcasts get with me, and they've started implementing the segment in their show as well.
Good. It's amazing. Okay, so what's your first segment then in your podcast?
So the first segment is just an introduction. Okay. Welcoming folks back to the show, a little bit of banter back and forth between my co-host and and then we introduce our guest if we have one, or the topic of the day.
Okay.
And that's usually that's usually about 5 minutes. And then we will introduce the guest, and then it's all about the guest up until our Veterans Helping Veterans segment. And we'll never compromise on that portion of the show.
It's nice. They're like anchor points, right? Where you kind of work your way to it and you know what you're going to switch. Yep. Your audience knows after a period of time.
As a matter of fact, I have this little timer that I use.
Yes, smart. There you go.
Keeps me on track.
Yep.
And
that's a good idea.
And my co-host, Lou, I love him to death, but he definitely has the gift of gab. So I have to reel him in periodically. And so I have sound clips. I have a Rodecaster that I use. We can talk about that and equipment later. But I have sound bites. And one's an intro of the music for our Veterans Helping Veterans segment. And so if he's long-winded, I'll just hit the sound and he knows, I guess I need to be quiet a little bit.
Play them off, right? Like the big award shows.
Right.
Music just starts playing. You're like, I guess I'm done. Yeah.
Right. Pretty much.
The comedy club with the little red light of the comedy club. Like,
you're done.
Exactly. You're done.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's a way to not be rude and look like I'm stepping over them.
Yeah.
And eventually, once more people, start watching the show again, and they'll realize that, they come to expect it.
Is it difficult to do a live show? You talked about getting distracted as a host. Is it hard to not look at the audience and try to interact with like a chat or all the things that go on? You're spinning a lot of plates doing a live show. Do you ever get a little distracted by that?
No, I get pretty focused on that because now I have a task at hand, right?
Okay.
I know I've got to pay attention to the comments. I got to pay attention to the time. I have to pay attention if the guest is saying something directly to me or to Lou, my co-host. So I find that there's so much to do that I don't have to worry about being distracted.
Do you have any mental mind tricks that you and Lou do together to kind of cue each other when it's your turn to talk? Do you have any little tips on that? Yeah.
So it's not really mind tricks, but I use the platform Restream, and there's a private chat option in there that only myself and Lou can see. And so if something comes up like, hey, let's, as a matter of fact, what I would do is 5 minutes before we transition to the next segment, I'll type in 5 minutes. So that way he knows to kind of start wrapping things up and head to the next segment.
Smart.
And then, for example, once it's time to transition, I just type in transition. And so whether he's taking the lead or I'm taking the lead, either way, he knows it's time to move on.
Good.
So it's helpful that way from an administrative side of the house.
Yeah, I saw somebody doing that. They use a different platform for their recording. So they use just a Google Sheet because you can both see it live. They pull up the Google Sheet. It has a list of all the information for the episode, all the points. You're going to say this. I'm going to say this. So there's none of that. Well, what do you want to talk about next? I don't know. What do you want to talk about next? It's like it's right on the sheet. I'm just going to follow the sheet. I know that you're almost done talking because I can follow along. So I know I'm coming up and you're getting to the end of your sentence because we kind of cover these points. So I'm coming up in 3, 2, 1, and I just step in. So it's kind of nice to know there's some sort of thing in the background that keeps you
For
kind of
sure.
headed in the right direction, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not smart enough to use Google Docs, so we just use the private function.
There you go. It works. It works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, one more very important facet, and this is kind of a blanket statement. Um, there's no right or wrong way to do podcasting.
Thank you.
So you do what works for you. And if somebody else is doing something that works for them and that's great, and they tell you that you're wrong for not doing it their way, just let them think that.
Thank you. I'm so nice to hear that. That's kind of the mission of the show is there's, even if we all do different ways of approaching this, it doesn't mean that one person's wrong because it might be the best way for them. So instead of getting distracted by all the options, just pick what works for you, work on it, develop it, make it yours, and ignore the rest.
Exactly.
It's a buffet. You can't have everything at the buffet as much as you might want to. There's only certain foods you have time to eat unless you're going to live there. So make a choice, move forward, sit down and enjoy your meal. And that's your podcast. So
one little last nugget I'll throw out there as well. Don't do the show for your audience. And I know that sounds counterproductive. It really does. Do the show for you.
yes.
It's your show.
Right.
And that's the beauty of podcasting. So I found when you start trying to tailor it towards the audience, meaning I need to make the audience happy all the time, you kind of you lose your vision. Oh, there's a callback. You lose your vision of your show and you kind of start to stray, and then you don't start off, or you don't end up with what you started off with. And I fell into that trap. So learn from me. And I'm sitting here talking like I'm Joe Rogan or something, but no, it's, my mistakes I've had to learn through about, when did I start? I started probably, I think back in 2015. So I've had quite a few trial and errors.
Right.
But do it for you. Do your show.
Yeah, because you hear everyone talk about create it for your avatar, your ideal listener. Who are they? I don't know. It's a shot in the dark. I have no idea who they are. So I'll give them a fake name and a fake job and a fake age and hope I'm talking to the right person. But I just kind of felt like if I create a show for me, what I would listen to and something that entertains me, informs me, and then if you come as a listener and you fall in love with my show, you're probably going to like me because I'm just making it for me. I'm completely selfish in that I'm just doing this for me. And my community then comes around me and goes, I came for the topic, but I stayed for the host. There's something about the show that I really like. So I just I'm just like you. I make it for me.
If you're making yourself happy with the show, others are going to be able to pick up on that and the energy, the vibe, and the listeners will come. It may take a while, may take a couple years, and that's fine because once again, you're doing it for you. And ultimately, with you doing it for you, you're really doing it for everyone else also.
Yeah. Good. Talk a little bit about some of the tools that you're using as well.
I know that sounded really convoluted and crazy, but it's pretty simple. Do it for you and enjoy it.
Nice.
So I started out with a really cheap, I think it was a Tascam, a one input XLR microphone cable, and I had that running into my laptop, and everything was running into Audacity.
Yeah.
And it worked okay to start out. I found that as I got into it a little bit more, I got a little bit higher quality of product because I found that, when I started, I was in Japan. So I was fighting internet issues over there. And I was not doing live podcasts then, but my guests were obviously in the States. So I would be up at 2, 3 in the morning because of the time change, just so I could get my guests on and do the show. But, and that worked out okay at that point. But then when we came back, we said, hey, let's start doing some live shows with the, advent of all this technology. So what I had simply wasn't working any longer because now I had a physical guest or a physical co-host sitting with me. So I moved up to, oh my gosh, I just had it on the tip of my tongue, but is a mixer board basically.
Yeah.
I can't remember the brand. It doesn't matter. And so I had 4 channels now that I could use for input, and that worked out okay. But then I decided, well, let me be silly and add some sounds in it. But I don't have a way to add sound, so I went and I got one of those. I think it's the Elgato Stream Deck,
Yep. Yep.
and that everything worked great until Stream Deck no longer would update for Mac users. So I'm like, well, crap. Let me save some money, and eventually I went and I bought the Rodecaster soundboard, and it's fantastic. Yeah. I've got 4 channels I can use. I've got sounds already integrated into it. There's just so much that I can do with it. It wasn't cheap, but in my opinion, with doing all the shows that I do, it makes everything worthwhile.
Nice. That's great. Yeah, I think we kind of grow as podcasters, and I think I've talked to some new podcasters. They don't even have a topic yet. But they have this thing about, I got to get all the gear first. Yeah. And like, if you're not even sure if podcasting is for you long term, you don't have to get the best of the best right out of the gate and spend a lot of money on something that maybe you might lose interest in.
Right.
Over time. Better to work your way up and always level up and grow and get feedback from your audience. And if they tell you, you sound like you're in a tin can, I can't hear you in the car when I'm driving to work, maybe that's a sign for you to go, okay, wait a minute. Maybe there's something I can do to sound better for my audience. Right. So you can always improve. Don't have to get the best of the best to start, and just grow. Like, yeah.
Your audience will definitely tell you.
Right.
For sure. And I couldn't agree with you anymore. You piecemeal. That's what I did. Start out, baby steps. You don't have, in fact, I highly recommend you don't buy the most expensive equipment out there, because it's exactly what you just said. You could start it, and then a month later, it's not for you. And now what? Now you're stuck with this $600-700 piece of equipment just for the board itself. And now you're out all that money.
Yeah.
Somebody would probably buy it, but you won't get the money back that you put into it.
Yeah. Your thoughts around video versus audio podcasting? What are you thinking?
I do both.
Okay.
I like them both. The video's fun because you can not only, the whole communication thing, the verbal communication, such a small portion of actually communicating. So I like to see the body language. I like to react, and that's fun, and that helps you lead. It can tell me if it's time to put in a stupid joke or not put in a stupid joke. So I like both. Audio's great too, because myself included, a lot of people like to listen to the audio versions of shows where they're driving. If you're on a trip or you have a long commute to work, just pop in a podcast.
Right.
So yeah, I like both. There's I'm sitting here trying to think of pros and cons to both, but either way, the more the merrier. Get your message out there any way you can, as many media formats as you can.
Right. Yeah. I think the one thing for me, video wise, just the size of the file on your computer or on your hosting site. Mm-hmm. Those are big files, and they usually cost money to house somewhere. Or they fill up your computer really quickly, and then you got to come up with another alternative to keep them long term after you've posted them. I don't know. So I've been using YouTube from day one of my podcast, and against all of the gurus' suggestions, I've always just done the static image, just the image with the audio attached. Uh-huh. So there's no waveform moving. There's no video, but the reason I do it is I treat YouTube as a Google Drive.
There you go.
That the whole world has access to, and my guest has access to. So our time together, I'm going to have this on YouTube probably, if not today, tomorrow. So it's already going to be up there. And with my hosting sites, there's a cycle of how much I can upload every month.
Right.
And I'm always butting up against that max every month. So when I meet with a guest for one of my shows, they'll be like, great, when can this come out? And I'll be like, how's December? And it's October right now. They're like, what? December? My book launches this week and I have it early. So YouTube is a way to work around that so they have access to it and the world has access to it right away, highly shareable. And then I just treat it as a backup drive. So if my computer ever crashes on me, I still have an audio copy of the finished episode that lives out in YouTube land as a free storage place. And I can download it and I still have a copy of it.
Amazing foresight too, because YouTube is actually trying to move in the direction of podcasts as well.
Right.
So, wow, you're a lot smarter than I am, that's for sure.
So YouTube is actually asking for these things now. And on YouTube Music, if we set up our podcast on YouTube within the confines of YouTube, it lives there and you can take a playlist and turn it into a podcast. And now on YouTube Music, you can actually toggle between a video version of the podcast or an audio version right on the app. So if you want to watch it and there's a video component, you click the button to the left. Now you're watching video. You don't have time to watch, but you want to listen, click it to the right. Now you're audio only, and you can put the phone in the pocket, close your screen, do something else. Where normally, if you don't have a paid YouTube thing, as soon as you minimize, it stops.
Right.
So now YouTube Music lets you listen to podcasts.
Very cool.
It's great.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but don't you have a video on how to do that?
Oh, see, wow. Okay, so that's $5 I owe you right there. So write that down. Send Andy $5. Okay. Yes, I actually did a little screen share thing where I walk you through the steps. And the tool that I use to create those YouTube videos, I'm calling them videos with air quotes, is oneimagevideo.com. And there you just upload your YouTube thumbnail that you need to create anyway, and then the audio from your podcast. The 2 files go up, they send you back a link, download it, and there's your video. It's all done. It's free. Again, because I like free.
Another shameless plug.
There you go.
I love them. I love it.
Awesome. So what are you excited about in podcasting for your show coming up down the road? What's catching your eye right now in podcasting?
I'll be perfectly honest. When I haven't looked at the 50,000 foot view yet, because I'm still at probably the 1,500 foot view, focusing mainly on because as long as we've been around, we're still in our infancy stage with the new programming format. So yeah. I'm concentrating right now on getting that portion up and running, making sure we're sticking to the format so it becomes habit and we don't have to be conscious about it. It just rolls. With that being said, I am excited that on Facebook, I went out and I basically put out a message saying that I was looking for guests, and the support has been tremendous.
Nice.
So I've got folks that have signed up all the way through December now.
Great.
So that's great. And what's cool about it is I'm not really screening. If you want to be on the show, sign up and we will talk about whatever it is you want to talk about.
Nice.
Because once again, nothing's off the table. Every Friday night at 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time.
That's it. That's a big table. If nothing's off the table, that's a huge table.
It's a tremendously large table. And might I add, since I'm doing all these shameless plugs, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Kick. So there's plenty of ways to find us.
See, that's a podcaster. I love it. Yeah, for me, one thing I'm looking at is just the whole the AI tools that are coming out for podcasters, directed to podcasters, and some of the tools that you can leverage for podcasting. So one of them that I love just to play with, just to give me ideas, I'm going to say, and every time you say it, an angel gets their wings, but ChatGPT, you can actually, what I like to do is I take it, if I have a guest coming on, I take their bio and I copy it and I paste it in there. I also copy a description of who my listener would be. So it's a new podcaster, they're starting a show, they're looking for tips to create their podcast. And then I take your bio and I paste it in there and I say, give me questions that I can ask Andy based on his bio and based on my listener that would benefit my listener. What can I ask Andy that my listener wants to know? And I get and I'll say, give me 10 questions. And even if I only use a piece of what they give me, I don't know what I don't know. So it comes back with a list of 10 questions. And I'm like, oh, I would never think to ask Andy that question. And then when I ask it, my guest goes, who are you? Like, where did that come from? And I tell them, like, that wasn't my question. I use this tool. But I like it that because sometimes you get stuck. You get
Right.
stuck. And like I come up, for example, I come up with 4 ways to grow your podcast. And I put it in there and like, what am I missing? And they'll give me one extra step that I missed. And now I have 5 ways to grow your podcast.
There you go.
I make sure I always put it in my voice. I always make sure it's me talking. I'm not just reading from whatever they give me. But it makes me think. It makes me ponder what I'm presenting. Because again, I don't know what I don't know. So anything that gives me a couple little bonus points that I missed is a benefit to my audience. So it's a kind of a nice little tool to have in the back pocket. And you can use the free version. You don't have to pay for it. So again, I like it for that. It just gives me some thoughts.
I just wrote that down because I'm going to use that.
There you go.
That's a great idea. Some questions you might not want answered though. No,
Yeah.
GPT is a great tool because even if you don't like the questions it gives you, it would definitely spark some spontaneity into maybe thinking of a question that you knew you wanted to ask, but you didn't remember, or down a completely different path. And that'd be great to ask this instead. So utilize your resources.
You want to freak yourself out, chat GPT yourself.
Oh boy.
I came back with who my wife is. It knew my wife's name was Jennifer. It knew that I lived in Canada. It put me in a totally different area of Canada that I don't live. It said that I had a herb garden, which I don't. And so a bunch of other stuff about me. So I responded back and I just let them know that, hey, this was good. This is not. Can you update your stuff? And they're like, oh, so sorry. We'll fix that. And I'm like,
scary.
This is weird.
That's
is
scary.
weird.
I don't know if I like that or not. Jeez.
So what I tell everybody says it's artificial intelligence. I say it's additional information, AI. It's just additional information. So you give it information, summarize it, give it back to me. It's kind of nice to have that because it's not pulling from anywhere.
Yeah.
So give me back that information in a different format. That's what I like to use.
I really am the true definition of artificial intelligence. Because my intelligence is definitely artificial.
I love it.
But it's interesting. My life's very interesting.
Andy, I love having you on here. You wanted me to add some A's and sorries, and I'll try to squeeze those in here at the end.
Yeah.
So again, let everybody know where you are in the world, and maybe what's coming up next on your podcast that we can look forward to.
So, I am actually located about 40 miles west of St. Louis, Missouri, in a small town called Lake St. Louis. Been out here for about 5 years now after retired from the military. Enjoying life. What was the other one you wanted me to answer? I'm sorry.
Yeah, what's coming up on your podcast that we can look forward to?
Yeah, so we have, as a matter of fact, let me pull it up here. We just had a gentleman on the show last Friday named Nathan Siegel, and it was a fascinating interview because he wrote a book titled Life After Bullying. But what you might think it is, it's not. It really focuses more on folks with a narcissistic personality.
Okay.
And that's what he had to deal with, unfortunately, growing up in his family. So he shared that with us, and it was a lot of fun. It was and this is what I love about doing this particular show is you never know what you're going to get, and you can learn from everybody.
Right.
So it's fantastic. But coming up this week we have a young lady. I'm sorry, we're not having a show this week because it's my wife's and I anniversary, and I would
congratulations.
Thank you, and I would not be around to do any more podcasts if I skip that.
Good.
But so we're still looking for guests. We're always welcoming guests, and you know what? I will send you. Nah, I won't do that. You use Calendly as well, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I use that as well. Maybe I'll send you that link and you can put it in
Sure.
the show notes. If someone's interested and they want to sign up, you're more than
Oh,
welcome.
yeah, for sure. We'll do that. That's great. It's exciting to have you on the podcast. And again, thank you for what you do for servicemen and women with the Umpire Project. That is such a great idea. And it's great for the kids to have somebody to look up to, for parents,
For sure.
maybe to be a little less vocal from the stands.
Right.
Hey, maybe we should just tone that down a little bit. So, but I just love the idea of men and women coming back to their community, being embraced and brought back into community life. And, that's a tough bridge to cross that I've spoken to many people in the service. And they just, sometimes that's a lonely walk, and it's a new identity, everything. You have to deal with it all. So having something like that to pour your life into and to give back to your community, it's a super idea. So we'll have links to that as well in the show notes. And again, if you're listening and you want to support your men and women that have served you so well, please go there and donate. So
please. And thank you so much.
So great to have you on, Andy. Come back in the future, okay?
I will. I just hope that I didn't cause you to lose any listeners.
I think we just gained a whole bunch of listeners. You know that? I love it.
Wow.
Excellent.
Thanks so much.
Andy.
I had a blast as always, and I'll definitely come back.
Okay. All right. I'll hold you to that. Everyone, all the information's in the show notes. Make sure you go and listen and follow along on the podcast, and make sure you reach out to great co-hosts like Andy and tell them that you found them on the show. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Hey, it's Dave jumping on here at the end. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for listening to the How to Podcast series. Putting this out there for you. You're starting a podcast and you're like, Dave, the technology is giving me a headache. This editing thing is, I don't know. It's banana pants. I can't figure it all out. And you're thinking, if there was somebody who could help me with my podcast, I would pay them to do the editing for me. Guess what? I'm actually doing that. I have clients now, past guests who've been on the show, on one of my other podcasts, on this podcast. I'm doing some podcast consulting. I'm doing podcast editing. I'm helping with people launching their podcast, getting it, all the technology stuff, getting your podcast in all the players, helping you with your YouTube channel, your website. Oh, it just goes on and on. It goes on and on. And I would love to help you. So instead of going to Fiverr or Upwork, I've been on there. I keep trying to get on for jobs and nobody's paying attention to me. And I need attention. I would rather work with you as a listener of the show. So here's what I'm saying. Go to howtopodcast.ca, leave me a voice message, tell me what you need, and let's work out something that works for you and your budget. And if you need full service or you just need something quick like a drive-through type service, I'm there for you. I got you. And if you like what you hear on any of my 7 podcasts, I can do that for you. I can. And I'd love to work with you because you are amazing. And I'm there to help you, whatever you need. howtopodcast.ca. Reach out, let me know what I can do to help you with your podcast. Thank you for listening. Catch you on the next episode. Take care.